just joined. Live today is about how to start taking ownership. Now that seems like it's a straightforward thing, except I think I've discovered in life it's pretty hard to do, or challenging. Challenging, should we say? It's not impossible. It's a challenging behaviour to take on board, and that's taking responsibility for your actions. So that's exactly what it is. Taking ownership is actually taking responsibility for your actions. And as you imagine, I'm going to lay this in with health and fitness and whatever your goal is, right? Where it's applicable. I just smeared my glasses. Just made them worse. Heena's probably dying. He's up to just stop wiping your glasses on your t-shirt. Sorry, Heena. So why is it important to take ownership? There's a couple of reasons why. The main one I'm going to go on and is applicable, I think I mentioned it when we talked about dealing with relationships, but it also applies to actually when you have a goal to lose weight or to become more healthy. Taking ownership for your actions is a bit, well, it's exactly that. The challenge you've got is that human beings, I've talked about this the other day as well, we are patented behaviours. We're almost, and some people go to me, why would you like a mind read, Helen? How do you know I was going to do that? Or how did you guess? Because actually, we tend to go down certain routes when triggered by certain behaviours. What I said before is, whilst we feel emotionally, we have different emotion attached to it, we feel that it's different, like this is happening to me. Actually, what we don't really appreciate is that actually lots of people behave in exactly the same way. They have the same actions. And part of what a coach is to read those actions and see them coming. Now, when it comes to health and fitness, taking ownership of your actions is something that, as a coach, you probably work on with a client for some time, if not the whole relationship is based around that. Because if you consider we're creatures of behaviour, right, we do what's comfortable more often than we do what is uncomfortable, right? So let me repeat that again. Our actions as humans, we do things that are more comfortable than uncomfortable, right? So if we're used to behaving in a particular way by a trigger or a set of circumstances or environment, we will always opt for the most comfortable response because it's what we most often have done and feel more comfortable with, right? It's almost like, I talked about it again yesterday, it's about a knee-jerk reaction, a bit like lots of things. Psychology and physiology, it's the same to some degree. With some people, triggers there, they behave automatically in exactly the same way without even realising that they're doing it. It just goes down the same route. So why then, going back to that question, is it important to start taking responsibility for your actions? Because we will always repeat the same patterns unless we start becoming aware and start owning it, right? If you don't own your behaviours, you're responsible for your behaviours, we will always repeat the same thing. Now, when I spoke about this before, bear with, just want to wheel my chair. Oh, God. When we repeat the same behaviours, you get the same outcome, right? Now, I talked about it before. I talked about it being in relationships. If you don't take responsibility for your actions or behaviours in a relationship, you will repeat the same behaviour or the same pattern of behaviours in the next relationship and have the same outcome. Now, health and fitness or losing weight, being healthier is no different. If you continue to fall back on the same behaviours, you will always get the same outcome, right? Because of that. If you don't take ownership of it, understand it, work on it, then what will happen is you will do it again and again and again. If you all are watching, or if you're listening as well, if you consider where you've maybe prior to working with you, if you've not worked with us yet, you haven't worked with us, then you understand that partly what a coach does is to, like I said, starting to understand that pattern of behaviour and making you aware of it, because we can't necessarily always see them, right? It's like the best friend that always listens to somebody making the same mistakes in a relationship and never challenges their friend to say, do you know what, maybe next time I'm try something different. We just, keep having a conversation when there's a next breakup and still kind of they're supportive. However, not challenging their friend. It's no different as a coach dealing with somebody who has a goal to be successful in losing weight or becoming more healthy. The main aim of coaching is to say, hey, that behaviour is leading repeatedly to the same outcome. Now, either you take ownership of it and take responsibility of your actions and choose to change it, or know that you'll keep going down the same route. Okay, so what happens, right? What happens when we... Okay, let's ask the question. Why do we not choose to act differently every time? Now, I did this activity before, and I quite enjoyed it. And for those watching, it's just probably easier to do than not, right? The same goes down to the same principle about taking ownership, right? So if you get cup and ball one hand, right, thumbs, we'll just keep doing that, and then rest and let your thumbs sit on top of each other, right? You look down and go, oh, all right, so I know, on camera it looks reversed, but my right thumb is over my left, right? So I've just done what's comfortable, right? So I've done a set of actions, just done what's comfortable, right? Now, consciously, if you're following doing this as well, it's really fun as well. So consciously think, right, I've got to swap the thumbs over next time I do it. So cup and ball, so fist hand, and then, now, ooh, that is uncomfortable. Yeah. I'm looking at that going, I've consciously chosen to do something and it doesn't feel right because I'm not used to it. So I could choose to take, like, partly of taking ownership is saying, right, ownership's like, okay, I'm here and now I'm choosing to make a different choice. So ownership is like, there's my behaviour, I've done my behaviour, now I'm going to choose to take it in a different direction. Oh, I don't like that. Now I can, next time I do it, I can choose to go back and go back to what felt comfortable, which I have immediately, which is funny, right? Didn't mean to do that, I just did, right? So I've gone back to where it was before. Or I could choose to go back in the other direction. It still feels, I still did it again, I had to change it afterwards, right? It feels very uncomfortable. And this is why people, it's not that they're consciously choosing not to take responsibility, it's just sometimes so uncomfortable that they don't want to make the different direction. And I've got a live about that as well in a couple of weeks, it's quite a funny one. But it's true, it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like you want to be doing that different action on a repeated basis because it keeps you in an uncomfortable position. Ooh, doing it like this, but it works. This demonstration really works because it shows you, firstly, what human behaviour is like because we're patented. Secondly, that you just want to keep falling back into the same behaviours without taking notice of it. And secondly, it's like a choice. There's always a choice to take ownership of, I want to choose and allow myself to go in an uncomfortable situation without falling back on my old behaviours, because that's what happens if you don't take ownership. If you don't take ownership, start owning and owning as well. Like I could, you know, this is the thing with a simple yet effective demonstration of that is that as people, we always want to go back to the comfortable situation, right? We want to go back into ignoring the uncomfortable situation, not take responsibility, and go silently fall back in, right? And not become oblivious of it again because it is uncomfortable. So we like to go in the same situation, except this is the point I'm making, right? You keep going back in the same loop again, right? So let's take a weight loss example, right? Okay, because I'm going to take a weight loss example of this. Always the one that happens, splurges. Treats, a little bit of something nice. Now, remember again, I've been a client and a coach, so I know, and I've talked about this before. I've talked about what happens. So if I'm a client and I am being held accountable to a coach and I do not follow a habit that's been set out and agreed upon with my coach, if I've agreed and said, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this for the next 7 days, and what happens is at day 3 I slide off into not doing that habit. Coach is asking and I'm going, yeah, it's going really well. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing it. And I'm not. That's not lying necessarily, it's because I've fallen back into the most comfortable behaviour. Maybe I've agreed on 3 or 4 treats a week and I've gone for 5 or 6, or maybe I've overdone one somewhere else, right? That's quite common as well. Like started out as something and then snowballed into something much greater that I know is moving further away. I can choose to not be accountable to my coach. I can choose, right, to ignore that painful conversation and say, do you know what, I didn't do it. Or I can own my behaviour and my action, be responsible for it, and take action then, right? So I can then choose, again, like swapping the thumbs, I can choose to take action after I've taken responsibility. So I can go to my coach if I so choose to and say, do you know what, I meant to have this, I had too much, I'm taking ownership and responsibility of my choice, and now what I'm going to do, I was going to have something else tonight, I realised that if I want to lose weight, I can't. So what I'm going to do is change my action, go in a comfortable position, right, and own it. Or, and we know what sometimes can happen, is that I can not tell my coach, not be responsible for the overeating, and then still have the thing I planned the next night, because that's more comfortable and more what I'm used to. Now on one occasion, this is the thing, on one occasion, it doesn't have a high amount of impact. On one occasion, it's probably quite minimal. The thing is, if we continue to repeat the same behaviour, as we know, I talk about habits and behaviours, it's the same thing about taking ownership. If I continue not to take ownership of those behaviours, I will continue to have an outcome where I do not lose weight. I'm not taking responsibility of it. I'm not choosing an uncomfortable action following up that to take responsibility of it. So that is just one example of how it works, and yet you can take that example for every part of anything you're trying to achieve most of the time in life is still applicable. I could take it to training and say, you know, I could choose not to if I've agreed I'm going to do 3 runs a week for Couch to 5k and I miss one, I don't go, for whatever reason, I choose in the moment that it's more comfortable for me to stay in bed. I can choose to contact my coach and say, do you know what, I didn't go for a run this morning, I chose to have a lay in bed, because at that time I was valued that more. What I am going to do though is tomorrow morning I'm going to make sure I do the run, and then I'm going to message you afterwards and let you know that I've done it, right? Or I could stay there the next morning as well, and then be behind on the next week after, and then do it again and then be behind, do it again and be behind. Now, that then obviously has its own consequences as much as eating, in that training hasn't been completed. Apologies. What I'm saying is it has its own challenges, right? Your training doesn't get completed. You're then repeating the same behaviour, and guess what? You're still coming up with the same outcome, which is A, not completing your agreement to yourself and your coach, and B, not actually moving towards the goal of which you've planned out for. Now these are the two things that actually, I'm going to be honest, somebody who takes responsibility, as you can tell from what I've just said, there's two examples, and takes action and owns their behaviours, is somebody who will move further down the line. I think sometimes, and I don't know, maybe everyone wants to input what they think it is. Like sometimes I'll say, clients say, I don't want to feel like I've let you down, but let you know. I'm like, you let me know. That's the best thing to do. Like, it's an open, honest conversation to say, do you know what? I prefer somebody say to me, rather than not take responsibility, say, do you know what? I didn't do it. I know we agreed on it. I don't have to apologise. I don't need, the apology isn't, like, there's always something more in the moment that you choose to do other than the thing. Agreed. There's something more attractive or something has more value. You've talked about this, you will more likely to do it. It's like me doing that, right? I still know, I'll still do it again. Still the same thumbs. Yeah, exactly. So I still know that people are going to, the more natural behaviour is to do exactly what they've been doing for years and years and years before they've worked with me, right? Because you've got to appreciate the period of time of which we're working together, as opposed to where you've been behaving doing this. The original thumb situation is much longer than I've asked you. Oh, we're back. I think we're back. It's alright. Okay, we're back on this one. Apologies if you got kicked off on there on Facebook. I am still here. What time is it? Must be time that Disney Plus got kicked up in the area. Disney Plus is on. Or is the gym in my village kicking up their Wi-Fi to put the music on because it's the 25th, right? Right. Where wasn't I? Oh, right. So I was talking about how you've been doing what's natural for much longer than you've been working with me. So I completely appreciate that. And as I said, I'd rather somebody say, do you know what? This is what, hey Bridgie, I'm glad you got me back. I just paused. I didn't carry on. I knew what had happened. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. Touch wood. What's I saying? Yeah, I prefer that somebody says, like, do you know what? I didn't do it. I'm going to own it, and then I'm going to move forward and replan it and take action on it. Okay, why would I prefer that, and why does the client actually start to prefer that? Because they can take control of it. This is the thing. There's a control element in this as well. When something happens and you don't take responsibility or ownership of it, there is a small undertow going on there about control, if it's allowed to let carry on, because then the client will inevitably, if they continue to do that behaviour, not take responsibility weeks and weeks down the line without letting a coach know, eventually they will come to me at some point and go, I feel like I've got no control over something. And again, the sense of control is a lack of action, so that is where it's at. See, okay, and we're going to talk about this, Karen, as well, about in another life, I think it's next week, on accountability. Accountability is very, very important, and yes, that's what a coach is there for. Also, they're not driving the car at the end of the day. The responsibility of action and being responsible for your actions is on the person driving the car at the end of the day. If they veer off into the distance, it's not the responsibility of the coach, because they're there to guide. We're like sat nav, not actually the driver of the car, if you like. That's the best analogy I can always give to somebody. So taking the sole ownership of responsibility is on the client, really, for them to learn long term. Because again, if someone has accountability, there's a control undertow, long term the client has control over their health and fitness, because they're taking responsibility for their actions. And then ultimately they don't need a coach to keep them accountable, because they're doing it themselves. But taking responsibility is like a skill, I think, sometimes in these situations, to understand that it is uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable situation only when something doesn't go according to plan. But also, yeah, I think that's, Karen, that's the thing, like I was just saying, the thing about setting a goal and setting action with a coach and accountability is absolutely essential. What I'm saying is that if it doesn't go according to plan, it's also both parties, right? So it's both parties responsible, but ultimately the person driving towards the goal is the client. For somebody who says, this is just a thing, and when I said I'm going to do a live about it in specific as well, taking responsibility for your actions. If somebody, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't train, I can't train for them. Coach can't train for them. I mean, it would. I mean, I'd always be in great shape, banging shape, right? The thing is, the responsibility for change the outcome and get what we want is that. It's like saying, I didn't do it, guess what, I'm going to do this, and proactively saying that to a coach, and then the coach can say, great choice, let me know when you're going to do it. So again, we can re-establish there's an agreement, right? When there isn't a re-establishment of agreement, there isn't a re-establishment of ownership, and isn't a re-establishment of accountability. So it all ties in together. However, ultimately, you've got to take responsibility. This is where I said I could have gone like either way on this and gone Hulk smash. I would have bought one of those, those Hulk hands. I might just go for a live anyway. Go rah, and go about it in that fashion. However, the reality is it is human nature and it's human behaviour to not to avoid it or to lie. It's not. I want to be clear. It's not lying. It's not lying. It's just sliding into what is comfortable. However, if you've got to do that practice of, there's my we just keep doing it. I'm just sitting doing this, going, this is my life. However, it's a great demonstration of it. There's an example of what we're like as people. This is the best demonstration of switching thumbs and going, yeah, that's uncomfortable. That's like everything you try and change in life right there. A very simple demonstration. And taking accountability and control over something is uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. So, recap, jazz hands. I said what taking ownership was, is taking responsibility for your actions. Super uncomfortable. Why don't we? Not because we're trying to lie, just to re-establish, just because we're creatures of habit and we fall into whatever feels most comfortable, and we do not see, unless we're conscious of it and make conscious choices of what we're doing. It's like the person who repeats the relationship. The person that keep finding the same person in a different physical form, and you just wonder, like, how does that happen? Same thing if you're doing a health and fitness journey, you're not coming out with a different outcome, right? You are continuing to take the same responsibility or that choice of changing those patterns and taking action on that choice as well. So I use the hand demonstration of cup and ball hands, and just keep smacking and stop and let your thumbs rest on top of each other. Which one sits on top? And then switch them, do the same activity, and consciously choose to change them when they go back and settle. ill for another time. It doesn't feel right, okay? And yet, I'm not saying this gives me any different outcome. What I'm saying is that actually, if you choose to be conscious of your behaviours, take responsibility for them, and then change the direction, yes, it's uncomfortable. However, guess what? It changes your outcome. Again, though, as a coach, I appreciate and fully understand, again, having been a client and a coach, that sometimes it's more comfortable to stay in the same behaviours because that's what you know, and actually you've been doing those behaviours far longer than you've been working with your coach, and there's a reason why it's more comfortable to slide back into the same behaviours. Again, though, if you choose a different behaviour, you get a different outcome. And I just went through an example what happens when you take responsibility for your nutrition, right, and your training, right? Ta-da! Ta-da! Done. I am still human. The layers, I could have just taken a layer off there. I did not, though. I stayed in this heat. I think I worn 2 layers in about 4 months. Woo! So, hope you have a fantastic weekend. Whatever you're doing, take responsibility for your actions. And I will see you on Saturday, Monday night at 5. All right, have a great one, guys. Ciao.